And now back to your regular programming.
If you speak better to yourself.
You showed up for like probably the dumbest conversation we've ever had on this show.
Let's have that smile again.
Tell me how that happens. Physically should not happen.
Relax.
If you say
Give me as well.
3 times a day, God will line it up.
He's just an absolute hack, and he gets his ass kicked by the teammates every week. It's just terrible.
Sean, it's week 13, and I think we already have a decision on who should be the NFL MVP. It's got to be Josh Allen. I don't know how you can't say that after the performance that we just watched last night as they bodied the San Francisco 49ers. Oh, it was a little too cold for them. It was a little too much snow. They weren't ready for it. But Josh Allen was. Josh Allen just got engaged, and he said, you know what? I'm going to play the performance of my life, catching my own pass like we're playing backyard football. I get, and I want to get to this in a second, I get that there's been some tremendous running backs this year. Saquon Barkley, Derrick Henry. It's the year of the running back. But Josh Allen, dude, was unfreaking believable.
It's his MVP to lose. And this time last year, the Josh Allen MVP debate was kind of coming to an end, where we had seen enough Josh Allen bad turnovers. The Bills weren't in a dominant position. They hadn't clinched their division 13 weeks into the season. So he didn't have the resume that he had this year. He hasn't had the incredible touchdown to turnover ratio. He hasn't had the dominant wins. I thought the window on the Bills was closed with Stephon Diggs leaving, with critical pieces on defense leaving. They're not. And they just keep on winning at home in Buffalo. And Joe, I have a hunch, a slight sneaky hunch, that winning at home is only going to get easier and easier for them as it progressively gets colder and colder in that northernmost city.
So you just hit on, I think, what stands out to me the most that we saw from yesterday, outside of that just fantastic game that Josh Allen played and just like really baking into our minds. If we're giving the award that always goes to the best quarterback, again, sorry, running backs, it's just not going to be the year. The guy who is leading his team to ultimate success is Josh Allen. One, we know that, as you mentioned, the receiving options that he has, they're not as strong. He's being able to produce all this. But what you just brought up, having the advantage to play in the snow, to play in the cold, is so visible. It was so on display going up against the 49ers. I understand that if you get Kansas City coming your way, it's not like they're not used to playing in frigid ass weather.
Right.
They play in it all of the time. But yesterday was this just very blatant example of seeing when it's freaking cold and there's snow on the field, most teams aren't ready for that. It is a different type of frigidness and weather and climate that a team has to battle through. Them getting home field advantage, which they're pushing towards, the Chiefs are going to drop one more in this stretch. They could be on a path that is going to lead them to a Super Bowl.
It'd be huge. I love the outdoor stadiums this time of year. Cleveland is making a massive mistake if they actually do go forward with putting a roof on their new stadium. I believe the Bills' new stadium is still going roofless, which it should. And I got roped in last night. I got baited like it was 2014 by a master of hot takery, and that's Skip Bayless, claiming about the snow in Buffalo last night and how he wanted to see the athletes in the pristine conditions. And he couldn't have been more wrong. We saw the best athlete in football in Josh Allen play to the best of his capability against a team that couldn't handle the elements. I loved it. What a hack Skip Bayless is for trying to, I know, first time that's ever been said, but for trying to take away from the moment, from what football is really about, when games matter in December and January, when it's goddamn cold outside. I like it. Give me more snow games. Give me a blizzard in Green Bay this week. I'll be thrilled.
This is a pro play football outside podcast. There is this annoying trend, and we know why these teams are doing it. These stadiums, these owners, these cities are doing it because they want to be able to host a Super Bowl. They want to be able to, especially Buffalo, when there was that possibility of them adding a dome to the stadium. There's talk of the Browns stadium having a dome, the Bears stadium having a dome. Yeah. All of these stadiums are projected to have domes or are hoping to have domes so that they can host a game in February and they could play a game indoors and that people can come and visit the city, blah, blah, blah. Good for the economy. Who cares? I want to watch 3 to 4 inches of snow on the field, guys just slopping around and falling all
Yeah.
over the place, drunk people diving in the snow in the stands. That's all I want. That's good football. That's real football. Not this crap where it feels like I'm watching a game in a country club. I've been in the Rams Stadium. That is supposed to be the state-of-the-art example that everybody's trying to copy. It felt like, I don't even know, it felt like I was at, I'm trying to think how like a concert venue. It felt like I was in an indoor concert venue watching a football game. The energy sucks. It's too warm. The drinks are too expensive.
Well, that's how it's laid out with the whole concourse and all the nice LED lighting on the outside.
There was too much space. There was too much wasted space. That was what I hated the most.
You know,
I want to be on the damn field.
You know what domes do to NFL fans of those teams and sports fans? They make them lazy. They make them complacent. They say, I could just watch at home. Why would I drive out to watch in a nice heated AC environment? No. If you're playing outside in a building of just strict concrete, it makes you feel like you're doing something. And that's why the fans in Buffalo are rowdy. That's why the fans in Pittsburgh are rowdy, because they're making the venture, stepping out in the cold with the players, and that's why they make an impact on the game. Not these lazy Atlanta fans swag surfing in week 4, okay? It's a terrible towel season, and that's a playoff team, and the Bills have an outright advantage because they play in the cold and awful conditions in a bad old stadium.
I would love to discover the trend of teams that have won Super Bowls in the past 20 years, how many of them played outside? Because already I can think off the top of my head, the Patriots play cold-ass weather. Chiefs play cold-ass weather.
Eagles, outside.
Eagles, cold-ass weather. Rams are the only one that I can think of off the top of my head that have won one that play inside in a dome.
Seattle, Denver.
Both perfect
outside.
examples.
Both
Giants.
cold. Giants.
I think we just discovered something.
Saints 2011, they were inside. Packers outside 20.
There's only in Steelers as well. There's only a
Steelers.
couple of examples of teams that played indoors.
Playing outside
there's
is the
mounting
ultimate
evidence.
edge. Why would you take that away?
Yeah. All right, there's lots to yell about in this upcoming segment. Before we get there, though, Sean, can you share with our listeners a quick word from BetOnline?
Oh, I would love to. Joe, do you think I've made money on Sunday Night Football or lost money on it?
No.
Oh, I made just enough money to bet on Monday Night Football. And for Monday Night Football, I'll make just enough money to bet on Army, Navy. And you just keep the nice little train going. Keep yourself invested. This is brain rot, but it's fun. This is what we get to do. We get to bet on sports. It's legal now. You're not calling a bookie, and you're not fighting your friends because they had to place a bet because you didn't have the online wagering. It's here for you. BetOnline has it. Earliest in-game odds, in-game live betting. BetOnline provides you constant real-time odds and action and the ability to watch the games as they happen. You want to sit in a dark, cold room with no lights because your team lost and make a 5-leg parlay on the 435 window NFL? Go ahead and do it. You're living like me. Head to the website today to see why BetOnline is America's most trusted site for online wagering. BetOnline, the game starts here.
Sean, it's time to put in Michael Penix for the Atlanta Falcons. 17-13 loss to the Chargers, third straight loss, 6 interceptions in that span. Final 2 drives were interceptions for Kirk Cousins. 0 touchdowns. We have gotten to this point where we're seeing that not only Kirk Cousins, he was supposed to come in and at least be steady ground. These last 3 games, it's not reflective of how he's played this whole season, but with all the money that they're paying him, he's turned into a detriment. He has turned into an anchor that is weighing down the Falcons when they should be surging at this period of time with the final weeks of the season coming up for them to have momentum. You know how you inject momentum into a team?
How?
You take the young quarterback that you drafted in the top 10, you throw him into the mix, you start taking some deep shots. Anything can be better than the shit that we're watching with Kirk Cousins right now. The guy is too old. He's washed. Good luck trading him with that contract.
Thanks.
And that's probably what they're trying to do is like, hey, can you play just like a little bit better so we can get rid of you?
He can't.
They need to move on. There's no redeeming here.
There's so much to unpack with this team this year, Joseph. I'm going to take it back to Kirktober, which needs to I need to get like an actual psyche doctor to dig into Kirk Cousins' brain and ask him, why is it only once a month? And now we're in Cousins' Sember, Kirk Sember, and it is a disaster. November was a disaster. In his losses, Kirk has 3 touchdowns to 11 picks. He is costing the team. You see the score 17-13, Joe, to the Chargers. What do you think? They had a couple rushing touchdowns, kicked a field goal, and were staunch on defense. How about their kicker won the game for them? They had a 2-point conversion and a pick six. We got beat by a kicker for the second time this year. This time, though, beat by a kicker and our own quarterback. It is an embarrassing state of the Atlanta Falcons where everything they do is backwards. Bijan has 5 straight really good rushes. Let's go away from him. Kirk Cousins can't make a throw. Let's put in Tyler Algier and throw a screen pass to him. And then it all goes back to the offseason. I'm still not on board with the hiring of Raheem Morris, Joe.
Come on. I think it's a little too soon to call that out as not working because, to be fair, they don't have any edge rushers.
That's true. They never will. Can I give you a scenario real quick?
Go ahead.
All right. You're eating Thanksgiving dinner with your parents a couple years ago, right?
Okay.
You have a guest there, just family friend. Guest stands up, spits right in the mashed potatoes. You kick him out. Oh my God, I can't believe he spit in the mashed potatoes. He's never coming back to Thanksgiving. We're all good. We still have the whole meal. Take it back to this year. Guest is back. Guest is spitting in the mashed potatoes again, but now he's reaching the stuffing and the cranberry sauce. You know what that is? That's Raheem Morris coming back to Atlanta after he was given the boot 3 years ago. It is unbelievable that they decided to give another shot at a guy who spit in the potatoes. It's not working. It's a bad decision for a team that does not take themselves seriously.
I have no idea how to analyze that. I got to be completely honest. I don't know if I disagree with that or not, but that might be one of the most ridiculous.
You can't bring back the guy that spits in the potatoes, Joe. You just can't do it.
All right.
Why would you? He's ruining Thanksgiving for you.
I just don't think that it's completely ruined. Because he's not an offensive-minded guy. He's not responsible for Kirk Cousins. They shouldn't have brought in Kirk Cousins in the first place. They should have understood that, like, hey, if we're going full rebuild, we're going full rebuild. As somebody who did the Giants, as a fan of a team with the Giants where they did the whole, well, we're staying competitive, but we're going to take Daniel Jones. Pick a lane. That was the problem, not Raheem Morris.
Here's the good thing about this late season collapse. A lot of it is still on Raheem because the defense just decides to give up before half.
They gave up 17 points to a Chargers offense that has been like
they
really
gave up
good.
40 plus to the Bo Nix-led Denver Broncos.
All right, that's a good point.
Okay. That's not great. They gave up 30 plus, maybe 38 to the Geno Smith-led Seattle Seahawks. So,
all right, you're making good points here.
I'm telling you, it's a bad ship. It is a sinking ship. But silver lining, maybe it's only 1 year, Kirk, and we just eat the money. I hope that's what happens. I'll take 1 year, Kirk.
God, I do not.
I am going to be watching Michael Penix's 6 pass attempts on repeat all offseason, just analyzing. He's at, I think, 5 or 6. I got to dive deep on it.
Look, the only way that moving forward, if they're like out of the mix, they got to at least start him for the final couple games of the season. Michael Penix is the future, and anything can be better than Kirk Cousins right now. Russell Wilson, a little bit of a throwback performance as he goes for over 400 yards for the first time in 5 years. 44-38 win for the Steelers over the Bengals. That Bengals defense is awful. It is terrible. Lou Anarumo was being talked about at one point as being, hey, could he be the next big-time head coach? Could he be the next candidate for a lot of teams? Interviewed a lot, never got a job, and I think we're starting to find out why. The talent on this team, there's quality players, but it is not anywhere near playing up to the potential as they're getting whooped by teams. 44 points to the Steelers. This offense has not been nearly this productive at all. To give up 400 yards to Russ is embarrassing. Also, got to throw out there another MVP level loss performance for Joe Burrow.
If King strikes again, passing that torch. Love it. I don't love how wrong I was about Russell Wilson and the Steelers this offseason. I'm continuously being proven wrong. I can't believe this dude, Mr. Unlimited, Mr. Awful Subway commercial, Mr. Constant Future Beef, is absolutely dotting this late in this season after how atrocious he looked in Denver. It's incredible. It's incredible also that his wide receiver 1 is constantly getting unsportsmanlike conducts. And finally,
hold on. I don't mean to cut you off. They need to just let George Pickens live. Just let it. They just need to. He should be exempt from getting penalties.
Yeah. Okay.
Just let him live. He's the most entertaining. One of the most entertaining people in the NFL.
I very much agree. But now Big Daddy Mike Tomlin is putting his foot down and saying he needs to grow up. He just needs to grow up.
No, let him play with that chaotic energy.
He needs the chaotic energy because it matches Russell Wilson's like choir boy weirdo energy in a perfect way, where it's just an absolute mega vortex of weird vibes that throws every defense off.
I say he gets one offensive celebration and one fight per game, and then after that, then you could penalize him. I think we need special George Pickens rules. I think that's fair.
It's going to be an amazing scene when George Pickens punches a Bills defender in the back of the head and loses the Steelers a playoff game when they were up 14 to 10 with 3 minutes left in the fourth quarter.
And I'm going to be smiling ear to ear because it's going to be the funniest thing ever.
Every talking head is going to be sitting there like, wow, why did we put a stop to this? He just cost him the game. And we're going to be looking back at week 13 when Tomlin said, you got to grow up. And if he didn't by then, he will cost this team a playoff victory. It's a certaintude.
Sean, on a more serious note, Azeez Al-Shaair, the defender for the Texans, he had one of the most controversial hits of the season and possibly for the next few seasons. In an era of football where player safety is super important, in their 23-20 win over the Jaguars, he went right for Trevor Lawrence's head as Trevor Lawrence was trying to slide. He came out with an apology today. I think that's all a bunch of BS. There is a highlight reel of him being dirty with opposing players and hitting guys in the head and just doing things late. There is no excuse for what he did. Guys need to be able to slide. Quarterbacks need to be able to protect themselves. There was so much time available for him to see and evaluate that Trevor Lawrence was not trying to dive and pick up yards, that he was sliding. There was so much space that it was clear that he was trying to do that. There was no reason for him to do what he did. I don't know what the suspension needs to be. I know that he's probably going to get some sort of a fine, but multi-game suspension needs to be necessary in order to just clarify with the rest of the league that knows not to do this. But if you're going to be dumb enough to do it, it needs to be severe enough.
Yeah, I'd say like four games, 6 games, maybe in that range.
That seems like a lot.
That's a lot.
I thought it was
4
like
games.
2.
Oh, two's.
I mean, what's the precedent for this?
I don't know what the precedent is because they keep on moving the goalposts on
like,
quarterbacks.
What was Vontaze Burfict's penalty for blasting Antonio Brown in the head?
His wasn't only a 1, was it? It couldn't have only been a 1.
Let me look that up. What if Trevor Lawrence turns into Antonio Brown after that hit?
Maybe he'd be a better quarterback. All jokes aside, it's a bad hit. It was a mistake. It was avoidable, of course. Rex Ryan, as ungodly and annoying as he has been trying to get the Jets job back, made a good point today talking about what quarterbacks should do to protect themselves. He doesn't think they should slide in the open field. He thinks they should dive at the ankles. That forces defenders to put their hands down, protect their legs, and then everyone's safe and sound, or take on a hit and get your head out of the way. Both are better options than the open field slide or the contested slide that we have been seeing over the last couple of years. I also take stock in Kurt Warner not throwing full blame on Azeez Al-Shaair. This is a Hall of Fame quarterback that is making a point saying, I know he played in a different era, but we're seeing that this continues to happen. The Flacco clip got reemerged today where Kiko Alonso took his head off on the slide. It's got to be impossible for defenders to not know when they can hit a quarterback. You can't hit them in the pocket. You can barely hit them in the pocket. You don't know if you can hit them while they're running past the line of scrimmage. When they're on the sidelines, can I touch him? Can I not touch him? He's still trying to go for more yards. We need to figure out as a league when we could tackle the quarterbacks. Are we moving towards quarterbacks when you pass the line of scrimmage, no holds barred, go after it? Or is it quarterbacks when you're behind the line of scrimmage, no holds barred? Because these defenders, I think, are getting very confused in split-second decisions when a big 6'5" quarterback slides down to the ground right in front of them.
I can't really completely get behind that because it's less about, I know that the NFL protects quarterbacks, but the letter of the law here is like trying to protect players in defenseless situations. So any player who's going down, who's sliding, the play is clearly done. You can't be going full speed ahead, launching yourself into a player's head.
You
just can't be doing that.
Completely agree.
It's not even a tackle. Like,
quarterback could also slide.
He was throwing himself into somebody's head.
Yes, this was an extreme example of this hit.
By the way, Burfict was suspended 3 games.
Oh, yeah, that seems about right.
So I think that, 2-3 games.
This could be 2 or 3 for me.
Okay.
But quarterbacks could also slide earlier. All right. They're pushing their luck every single time. They need to get down earlier if you're deciding to slide. There is a window when you're rolling out. Trust me, there is a window before a defender closes down on you. But these quarterbacks think, oh, that defender can't really run a 4.4. His shuttle wasn't that fast. He's not going to get up on me. If you really want to protect yourself, slide earlier. That's what it has to be. Slide earlier, dive headfirst at the ankles, or take the hit without your head. One of the 3. But this late slide, bargaining with not being able to make a decision.
You hate quarterbacks. You've always kind of like.
I expect more from them. Okay, This is the NFL. This is where the big boys play. College quarterbacks, you can run into whoever, whenever, take whatever hit you need to. You're crash dummies at that point. NFL, hey, this is a franchise. This is an NFL franchise, Joe, worth billions. Learn how to protect yourself.
Sean, I'm asking myself this question after watching the Jets lose and look pathetic.
Is it, do you want to live?
Jets lost to the Seahawks 26-21. I'm wondering, can you fire an interim coach? Because Jeff Ulbrich has been on a tear of one of the worst interim coaches I have ever seen, because the bones of this Jets team, it's talented. Will McDonald, who some people question if he was worth drafting when they took him a couple of seasons ago, he's been great.
Yeah.
He surpassed 10 sacks. He's been one of the sack leaders in the NFL this year. He's been awesome. There's so many good players on this team. Why are you losing games still? And I know that they were kind of in it, but they weren't. If you watch the end of this game, there really was not much of a hope that Aaron Rodgers was going to muster some sort of a late drive that was going to help them win the game. But you'd think if you bring in the interim coach that you'd be like a little scrappy, that something could apply here, that you could have a little bit of life. And it hasn't been the case. They just look pathetic so often, minus a couple of bright spots.
They have so much talent on this team, which is so unfortunate that they waste that it ended up not. They didn't waste it. They made a play with a future Hall of Fame quarterback. So I'm not going to do hindsight 2020. They made a mistake. I think that's actually unfair to the Jets ownership. It was a smart play in all of our eyes. It should have worked. Rodgers still had juice. 2 years later, it's like a locker room cancer almost. You can almost feel the aura coming off of the Jets when they take the field. It's not a positive aura. It's a negative aura. They don't feel good. They don't look good. They don't look confident. They look not scared, but timid. If you have players like Sauce Gardner, Garrett Wilson, Breece Hall, Will McDonald, Jermaine Johnson, who I know got hurt, you have all of this talent, the young core. This isn't just young core saying young core Washington Wizards nonsense because we keep on trading off scrappy vets. No. This is legit young core stuff that you would need for a deep playoff run. You have talent at every position, and you keep on fumbling and bumbling around. It is an awful situation. It's actually paranormal. It cannot be rationalized by a typical football mind to diagnose this is exactly why. It can't just be Rodgers because the defense isn't playing great. It just feels mythical how bad they are.
Frankly, it all comes top down. I mean, it did ownership, and there's no resolving that. They have been awful, and they will continue to be awful. And I'm sorry for all those young players that are wasting their career playing for such a terrible franchise. We got to give credit. We have to give credit to Bryce Young for the way that he's playing at the current moment. We got to give credit that he's not playing as a world beater, but the Panthers look to have more and more life every single game that they play in this season. 26-23, they lost to the Buccaneers, just a tight football game where their defense had 4 sacks, 8 tackles for loss, and Bryce Young goes 26-46 for 298 and a touchdown. Not crazy good stats because his completion percentage was in the 50s, but they could not run the football, so they had to rely on throwing it as much as possible. If you would have told me that in week 13 that Bryce Young would have had 46 passing attempts, didn't throw an interception, only took 1 sack, and almost eclipsed 300 yards passing with the awful receiving core that he has, I would have called you batshit crazy.
Yeah.
Bryce Young's improvement this year is among some other guys that we've talked about in their second, third years that are continuing to get better on a week-to-week basis. NFL Network was reporting that they're leaning towards building around him. I firmly believe, and I said this when they initially benched him, that that's the right decision. There is a premier quarterback deep down in Bryce Young. A quarterback that can be a decisive, elite decision maker, a distributor. They need to be as aggressive as possible in this upcoming draft, depending on where they're picking, in order to go after as many playmakers as possible. At 3-9, they're going to be picking high. I would trade back. I would hope that you finish with a top 5 pick and bait some idiot into trading up to go take Garrett Nussmeier or Carson Beck or Quinn Ewers or whoever you can bait them
top
into.
5 guys, Joseph.
Some dumbass team, I'm telling you right now, is going to get baited into doing it. Trade back, accumulate picks, turn yourself into an offensive powerhouse. But it all starts with, if you have the semblance of having a guy, invest whatever you can, because Bryce Young continues to look like a franchise quarterback more and more every single week.
Bryce Young having this good spurt at the end of the season here, it couldn't have come at a better time. His benching also couldn't have come at a better time because there's not a guy in this upcoming class that for quarterbacks that I think is a true franchise restorer. So if you have a quarterback with momentum that seems to be playing better, take a year with him. What are you going to, it's not going to make the fans upset if you still got a guy up there that's playing better. You can get them invested in the momentum. And say you do draft the weapons. Say you do draft some more offensive linemen. Say you do get one good piece on defense in free agency or through the draft. Then what are you out? The next guy coming in case Bryce Young flops, is inheriting a better team than the one where Bryce Young inherited. So it's all turning up Carolina somehow with Bryce Young's elevated play, where I think the trade down, it is a smart option. If there is a tackle good enough or some interior lineman that they can get a 10 to 15, whatever, it's a smart play. And it's good for Bryce Young to be finding his bearings. And if they decide to ditch him, I'm sure some other team will be happy enough to take him on if he has a decent year next year.
I say trade back, draft Kelvin Banks out of Texas and Luther Burden out of Missouri if you can get 2 firsts somehow. If you have 2 first-round picks.
Yeah, that would be a winning combination.
Don't even touch defense. All right, last game that I want to get to, Sean. It pains me to say this, but the Eagles are looking like the clear favorite to win the NFC and to go to the Super Bowl. I can't stand Nick Sirianni, but here we are again. Since that Week 5 game where we admonished him for the absurdity of him jawing with fans, where they barely beat the Browns 20-16. They haven't lost since then. They've been on a run. And in this game against the Ravens, who we have donned a premier team in the NFL that have hit a little bit of a skid, but more so a rough patch of a difficult schedule, they went on a 24-3 run in the second half to win this game and win it securely. What has been the most impressive part about this, and I think what held them back and what we were hoping for to eventually emerge, is the defense. Their offense at times is inconsistent. We know that Saquon Barkley is an MVP candidate. Jalen Hurts is the one that provides that inconsistency. But to be able to have the huge defensive plays from Cooper DeJean and Jalen Carter, all of these players that have been accumulated with early draft picks over the past couple of classes, it's dangerous. Teams need to be ready to deal with this in the playoffs because they are going to be a tough out, whoever they go up against.
Yeah, defense is really solid. 3 sacks on Lamar Jackson. I don't know if there's a harder quarterback to actually get down on the ground. They also hit him 6 times. I don't know if there's a harder quarterback to get in arm's reach of. I don't think Philly is going to win the NFC. I think it's going to come down to Jalen Hurts having to outduel Jared Goff, which is not possible in my mind at this moment. He threw for $118 against Baltimore. Baltimore is a playoff team. Baltimore is a very good team. But $118 and 1 touchdown isn't good enough. And it's going to be on the shoulders of Saquon Barkley. That's what it's all going to come down to. And because it's that, they're winning a bunch of regular season games, which is great. But when the crazy shit starts happening in the playoffs and that ball starts bouncing around metaphorically and realistically, I would rather be the Lions than I would rather be the Eagles, even though they have the edge at running back, even though they might have the edge at defense, at least with depth and health. And if Detroit can get a little bit healthy, I think they remain the clear number 1 seed. But it has been a very frustratingly good run for Philly over the last couple weeks.
Hate that Philly's good. At Joe DeLeone, at Sanderson Radio, at Hack City Pod. Folks, thanks for tuning in. We will be back on Wednesday with our midweek show, and we're going to be doing our mailbag at the end of the week on Thursday. Stay tuned. We'll talk to you folks later.